Before you plant another tomato, pepper, cucumber, or flower, stop for a moment and look at the hole, because what you put in there can either help a young plant establish quickly or create problems around the roots before the plant even gets started. Gardeners bury all kinds of things before planting: eggshells, coffee grounds, banana peels, Epsom salt, compost, fertilizer, and every season another secret ingredient promises faster growth, stronger roots, or a bigger harvest. But here's the part most of those videos leave out. Young roots are sensitive, and once you bury something underneath them, you can't easily take it back. So today, we're separating the ingredients that actually make sense from the ones that are mostly gardening folklore. And by the end, you'll know exactly what should go into the planting hole and what should stay out. But first, there's one mistake that causes more confusion than almost any individual ingredient: trying to create the perfect planting hole. Imagine this: you have average garden soil. You dig a hole and fill it with rich compost, premium potting mix, fertilizer, and a few organic amendments. It looks perfect: dark, loose, full of nutrients. But there's one problem: you improved the hole, not the garden. A healthy plant doesn't want its roots to stay trapped inside a small pocket of perfect soil. Those roots need to spread outward. They need access to moisture beyond the planting hole. They need oxygen. And eventually, they need to grow into the soil that was already there. So if the hole is completely different from everything around it, you haven't solved the real problem. You've only delayed it. That leads to one rule worth remembering: improve the root zone, not just the hole. Now let's start with the ingredient that sounds safest: compost. Finished compost is one of the most useful materials you can add to a garden. It adds organic matter. It can improve soil structure. It supports soil life. And over time, it can help both heavy and poor soils become easier for roots to grow through. So it seems logical to think, if some compost is good, filling the entire planting hole with compost must be even better. But that's where gardeners often go too far. The goal isn't to replace the soil around the roots with a pocket of pure compost. The goal is to improve the surrounding growing area. A moderate amount of mature compost mixed with the existing soil can be useful. But a hole filled almost entirely with compost doesn't automatically create a healthier plant. Think of compost as a soil improver, not as the soil itself. And there's an important distinction here. Finished compost and fresh manure are not the same thing. Fresh manure can be extremely rich in nutrients and salts, too rich for tender young roots. That means something you added because you wanted to feed the plant can actually stress the root system before it has even established. And this is a good example of a mistake gardeners make all the time, assuming that natural means harmless. It doesn't. Natural materials can still be too concentrated. So if you're adding compost around a new transplant, make sure it's properly decomposed and mature. If the material is still hot, smells strongly like manure, or is clearly still breaking down, don't put it directly around young roots. Compost should help create a better root environment. It should never become the thing the roots have to survive. Now let's talk about fertilizer. This is where one of the most expensive planting mistakes usually happens. A lot of gardeners think like this: if a little fertilizer helps the plant grow, a bigger dose should help it grow even faster. But young roots don't work that way. High concentrations of fertilizer can damage tender roots instead of feeding them. And the frustrating part is that the damage may not be obvious immediately. You plant the seedling. Everything looks fine. Then, a few days later, growth slows. Leaves start to look stressed. And many gardeners respond by adding even more fertilizer. Exactly the wrong move. Fertilizer can be useful at planting, but only when it's used for a reason, at the correct amount and in the correct form. A plant doesn't need the richest hole possible. It needs a balanced root environment. So does that mean you should never fertilize when planting? No. Some transplants can benefit from a properly diluted starter fertilizer. Some soils genuinely need extra nutrients, and some crops are heavier feeders than others. But fertilizer should solve a real need. It should never become part of a planting ritual that you repeat without thinking. Follow the label, use the correct concentration, and never assume that an extra handful will produce an extra large harvest. Remember this: feed the plant. Don't bury the roots in food, because once the fertilizer concentration becomes too high, you're no longer helping the plant. You're creating another problem. And now we get to one of the most popular ingredients gardeners add, specifically because they believe it prevents a problem: eggshells. The logic behind eggshells sounds almost perfect. Tomatoes need calcium. Eggshells contain calcium. So if you crush eggshells into the planting hole, you should get stronger plants and fewer calcium-related problems. Simple. Except there's one big issue: that calcium is not instantly available to the plant. The shell has to break down first, and that process can take a long time. Large pieces may still be sitting in the soil long after the growing season is over. So if you're adding eggshells because you expect an immediate calcium boost, the timing simply doesn't match the promise. Eggshells are not useless, but they are often used for the wrong reason. And the biggest example is blossom end rot. That dark, sunken patch on the bottom of a tomato can make it look like the fruit is rotting from the inside out. And because blossom end rot is connected to calcium, gardeners often assume the soil must be missing calcium. So they add eggshells. More calcium. Problem solved. But not always. A plant can have calcium available in the soil and still develop blossom end rot if it struggles to move that calcium into developing fruit. And one of the biggest reasons that happens is inconsistent moisture. The soil gets too dry. Then it gets soaked. Then it dries again. So while the gardener is focused on what to bury under the plant, the real problem may be happening above the roots every few days. That's why consistent watering can matter far more than a few crushed eggshells. The lesson here is bigger than eggshells. Before you add a nutrient, make sure the plant is actually missing it. So what should you do with eggshells? If you want to use them, there are better ways. Crush them finely. Add them to compost. Let time and decomposition do the work. And if you genuinely suspect your soil is low in calcium, test it before trying to fix a problem you may not even have. Because this is where many garden hacks go wrong. They start with something true. Plants need calcium. Plants need magnesium. Plants need potassium. Plants need nitrogen. All true. But then comes the dangerous shortcut. If plants need it, I should add more. Not necessarily. Your soil may already have enough. And adding nutrients your plants don't need can create new imbalances instead of solving anything. So before you add something because tomatoes supposedly love it, ask a better question. Does my soil actually need it? And that brings us to Epsom salt. This is one of those gardening tricks that has been repeated so often it almost sounds like a rule. Add Epsom salt to tomatoes. Add it to peppers. Use it for greener leaves, more flowers, better growth. But what is Epsom salt actually giving the plant? Magnesium and sulfur. That's it. Useful nutrients, yes, but not secret growth boosters. If your soil is genuinely low in magnesium, correcting that deficiency can help. But if magnesium levels are already fine, adding more doesn't suddenly unlock bigger plants or heavier harvests, and too much of one nutrient can interfere with the balance of others. So putting Epsom salt into every planting hole just in case isn't careful gardening. It's guessing. If there's a real deficiency, fix it. If there isn't, skip it. Now let's talk about coffee grounds, because unlike some of the other hacks, this one isn't completely useless. Used coffee grounds can be valuable organic material. They can go into compost. They can contribute to soil over time. But here's the mistake. Useful in the garden does not mean useful in a thick layer underneath young roots. A dense pocket of coffee grounds changes the environment in one small area. Moisture behaves differently. Decomposition happens right next to the root system. And instead of improving the entire bed, you're once again creating a strange little zone inside the planting hole. There's also a common belief that used coffee grounds will quickly make soil much more acidic. That effect is often exaggerated. So don't treat coffee grounds like an instant pH adjustment or a secret fertilizer. Treat them for what they are: organic material. Compost them. Use reasonable amounts, and let them become part of the soil system instead of turning them into a planting hole experiment. And then we have banana peels. This may be the most convincing planting hack of all because it looks so simple. Dig a hole, drop in a banana peel, plant a tomato on top, and the explanation sounds perfect. Bananas contain potassium. Tomatoes need potassium, so you've just created free fertilizer. Except the plant can't use a banana peel directly. That peel has to decompose first. Microorganisms have to break it down. Only then can those nutrients slowly become part of the soil. So burying a whole banana peel underneath a transplant is not the same as giving that plant an available dose of potassium. It's simply burying organic matter and waiting for it to break down. If you already compost kitchen scraps, there's a much better system. Put the banana peel in the compost. Let decomposition happen there. Then use the finished compost to improve the garden. And now we reach the most important question in the entire video. If we remove all these secret ingredients, what should actually go into the hole? The answer is much simpler than most garden hacks make it sound. For many plants, the planting hole should contain mostly the same soil that already surrounds it. If your garden soil has decent structure, reasonable drainage, and enough fertility, you may not need any secret ingredient at all. Dig the hole, set the plant at the correct depth, backfill with the surrounding soil, water thoroughly, and let the roots start expanding. If the entire bed needs improvement, improve the bed. Add mature compost where it makes sense. Fix drainage problems. Reduce severe compaction. And correct nutrient deficiencies only when you actually know they exist. Because one perfect hole inside poor soil is still surrounded by poor soil. And eventually, the roots have to grow beyond that hole. So before planting, ask yourself a few simple questions. Can roots move easily through this soil? Does the area drain properly? Does the soil stay wet for too long? Does it dry out almost immediately? Does the bed actually need more organic matter? And do you know which nutrients are missing? Or are you just guessing? Those questions matter far more than any viral planting recipe, because two gardeners can grow the exact same tomato variety and need completely different amendments. One garden may be low in magnesium. Another may already have too much. One soil may need more organic matter. Another may already be extremely rich. That's why there is no universal combination of eggshells, coffee grounds, Epsom salt, and banana peels that works everywhere. The solution should always match the soil. So let's make this simple. Finished compost, useful, especially when you use it to improve the larger growing area. Fresh manure directly around young roots, skip it. A huge handful of fertilizer, definitely skip it. Eggshells, fine for compost, but don't expect an instant calcium treatment. Epsom salt, only when there is a real magnesium deficiency. Coffee grounds, useful as organic material, but better composted or used sensibly instead of dumped into one concentrated whole. Banana peels, compost them first, and normal garden soil. That is still where most of the root system will eventually grow. The goal is not to create the richest planting hole possible. The goal is to create a healthy root zone. Those two things are not always the same. So the next time you see someone burying 5 different ingredients under a tomato and promising a massive harvest, ask one question. What problem is each ingredient actually solving? If there isn't a clear answer, you probably don't need it. Healthy plants don't come from cramming more things into the ground. They come from roots that can breathe, roots that can spread, consistent moisture, balanced nutrition, and soil that improves year after year. That may sound less exciting than a secret ingredient, but it's far more reliable. So before you plant your next tomato, pepper, cucumber, or flower, take one more look at that hole. It probably needs less than you think. And if you want more practical gardening advice without miracle cures, expensive gimmicks, and recycled garden myths, subscribe to the channel. We break down what actually works, what doesn't, and how to get healthier plants without wasting your time or money. And if this video helped you, hit the like button and tell me in the comments, what do you usually add to your planting hole? You may be surprised how many other gardeners are doing exactly the same thing.